Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. So, tonight, it's not every day that you do a show. We did a show back the first week in December about Antarctica. And it was very popular. The show was very popular because there was a lot of interesting things that were happening in Antarctica. That I just one day I said to Ron, my producer, I said, "What's going on in Antarctica? I want to know what's going on there, because it just seems to me that we have the Russian patriarch from the Russian Orthodox Church going there, saying that he's gone down to preach to penguins." They said, "Okay." Yeah, I'm sure that he takes time out of his busy schedule to go all the way down to the end of the earth to preach to penguins. We had John Kerry there. We had, I could go down the list. We had Buzz Aldrin there, and he was lifted out of there because he was sick. And all of this is, they kind of kept all this quiet, but then when Buzz Aldrin was taken out of there, people thought, what the hell is going on down there? And there have always been medical emergencies and all kinds of other things going on down there. There are bases down there where people are, it's a whole biological wonderkind down there in Antarctica. And, after we were speculating about why Buzz Aldrin was there, why John Kerry was there, why our intelligence operators were there, Prince Harry was there, the royals went down there. I said that if anything important was to be announced about Antarctica, that I would do a show about it. And guess what? At the end of the year, well, actually the 29th, there were at least 3 stories that were coming out of Antarctica. One was purely speculative about Nazi bases. And of course, we can talk about Nazi bases being down there because we've talked about base 211, which of course is part of the history of the Nazis fleeing and going to South America. Then from there, they went to Antarctica, allegedly. But there were other things that were being announced that I thought were pretty amazing. And, of course, we had earthquakes and UFO activity. Well, earthquakes happening last year. We had a major UFO story break a few days ago out of Chile, which, of course, South America, UFO activity, alien activity. They call it UAP, not UFO, because they're still trying to figure out what this phenomenon was. We're going to talk about that soon because we're going to try and get as many guests as we can to talk about this. But I would like to entertain the idea that perhaps something very simple was recovered or discovered by Russian scientists back when they first were drilling at Lake Vostok, and they found themselves, they were there above the Vostok station, they drilled down, they found the water, but they found bacteria because the lake, they figured, was heated by geothermal energy. And so they found this bacteria, they found these life forms down there, and that's the secret. We don't know what these life forms are. We just know that hypothetically, or, we can speculate that these life forms are there, but there is an oxygen level that's 10 to 20 times what we have here. So these creatures, or whatever they are unique to Earth because they breathe and they operate differently than we do. So the question is, if they are like this, could they be pre-terrestrial? And what I mean by this is could they have arrived on Earth and were buried in the ice of some flash freeze, and this geothermal energy is now heating up Lake Vostok, and we have these creatures there, and they're not telling us what these creatures are, but they are unique because they could be pre-terrestrial, or they could be from out there, extraterrestrial, who knows, but they could be saying some things about how we were created and whether or not scientists can prove that there's life on Europa and Enceladus. And remember, the other night I told you that they're very confident they're going to find life there. And I think the reason why they're confident is because of discoveries on Antarctica. Because if they know that they can find these types of life in the severe conditions in Antarctica, living in, waters that are oxygenated, because some skeptics say that maybe, this could be, too toxic for life forms, having, 10, 20 times the oxygen. That's the question. That's the thing. So tonight I wanted to bring Tim Swartz on the program. He's an Emmy Award-winning television producer, videographer. He's the author of a number of popular books about the paranormal. As a photojournalist, Tim Swartz has traveled extensively and investigated paranormal phenomena and other unusual mysteries from such diverse locations as the Great Pyramid of Egypt, the Great Wall in China, He's worked with television networks such as PBS, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, ESPN, Thames TV, and BBC. He has also appeared on the History Channel's program Ancient Aliens and the History Channel's Latin American series Contacto Extraterrestre. There we go. That's what it is. His articles have been published in magazines such as Mysteries, Fate, Paranoia, Strange, Atlantis, Rising, UFO Universe, Flying Saucer Review, Renaissance, and Unsolved UFO Reports. Tim is a great guy. We love having him on the program. I think it's awesome that I have you on the program tonight when we can, I guess, safely go out on a limb and be confident that life forms in Antarctica could very well indicate that there are life forms out there near Jupiter and Saturn. What do you say to that?
Oh, I think so, definitely. And, you have to consider how deeply buried this lake is under the Antarctic ice. So considering how long Antarctica has been in a deep freeze, I mean, we are talking about the possibility of life forms that haven't seen the light of day in millions of years. I mean, they may actually be our ancient ancestors.
And they very well could be our ancient aliens, right?
Yes, exactly. There is a theory that, life on planet Earth, first developed along its own track. And then there was some kind of cataclysm. And I'm talking about a cataclysm that happened way before, like the dinosaurs or any of the other, prehistoric creatures that most of us are familiar with. Mm-hmm. Most of the life was on Earth was exclusively to the waters. There was some kind of cataclysm. Practically all of the life was wiped out in the oceans. And then there was this sudden resurgence of life that took on forms that were completely different than the life that had been in the oceans previously. Mm-hmm. This life could have come from a massive meteorite strike, an asteroid strike, maybe even in Antarctica.
Well, and we do know that the recent announcement from NASA was that when they found this gravitational anomaly that was dated back, I think, 2006 from Ohio State University, they're now saying this anomaly was a huge meteorite or a huge meteor that very well could have been bigger than the one that allegedly wiped out the dinosaurs.
Right.
Yes. And so if that's the case, I mean, they found one in 1984. It was called ALH 84001, and they felt that when they examined this, it had a chemical composition very similar to that of Mars, and they saw the bubbling lava type flow in the rock, and they said they also saw what looked like little microbial fossils in the makeup. So if we want to lean towards the idea of panspermia, then not only do these meteors or these asteroids, these huge ones, come in and wipe out all life, they bring with it a new life form.
Those scientists have taken a lot of heat for suggesting that there could be, fossils of microscopic life in these meteorites. But if you look at the pictures and compare them to, say, well-known fossils of microbes, here on planet Earth, they look awfully familiar. Now, some of these fossils found in these meteorites are extremely small, a lot smaller than the ones found here on the planet, on planet Earth. So, I mean, I think that it's I think that it's a good possibility that we may be seeing this lake in Antarctica full of this kind of predecessor life, that started us all. There was an awful lot of activity on the Russian side when supposedly they made that final drill through,
right?
Into the waters, and information has been suspiciously lacking on just what exactly was found. I mean, some stuff has come out. I've seen actually some very strange video that seems to show like multicellular life videotaped in the borehole that was going down.
Well, they've been keeping it really quiet.
Very much so.
They've been holding the secrets, and this is why I'm very curious, because the other night I did a show where I said that 2017 would be the year that we would find out the truth about alien life. It wouldn't be the kind of disclosure that everybody's looking for about spaceships and aliens and abduction. But what it will be, it'll be something like this where, we have astronauts and dignitaries and religious people going to Antarctica, and they're being shown these primitive life forms, and they're being told, this is how God operated. This is what happened. We had this rock hit here, this rock hit there. One rock destroyed the sea creatures and the vertebrates, and then this other rock came here, seeded the area, and some of that life remained, and for some reason there was a flash freeze, and some of it is still kept all that way underneath the ice. And this would vindicate scientists who've said that Enceladus and Europa, both icy moons, could have life in their oceans that are also geothermically produced, which is amazing. Tim Swartz with us tonight on Ground Zero. Could what is going on in Antarctica be a precursor to telling us that there is life out there, very near us near Jupiter and Saturn? This would be the breakthrough story of the year if this is what is going on in Antarctica right now. And all points consider that, yes, this is what is happening. And this is why we're having all these people come down to look at this and what's going on in the experiments and what they've discovered. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. We'll be back with more Ground Zero. Don't go away.
FM News 101 KXL.
Antarctica, which may explain why we've seen all these dignitaries go down there recently, and why some of them had to be brought back, like Buzz Aldrin. We're looking into the possibility that soon the Russian secret of what's below Lake Vostok will be revealed. What we're talking about, pre-terrestrial life forms. And Tim had brought up a lot of these bacterial life forms are the small life forms that have been seen or that we've gotten glimpses of, but we've never really had them confirmed. And I was thinking, Tim, also Gilbert Levin. I brought up Gilbert Levin the other night, the 1976 Viking missions, where he did an experiment that showed that if he took some chemicals and he mixed them with the Martian soil, and they created methane. And he said, well, where are these nutrients breaking down to create this methane gas? And it was a positive result, and it got everybody excited. But then there were some other things that didn't come out, so they called it a false positive. Do you think that if they go back and they look at things like the rock or the meteor that they found in Antarctica, do you think they'll go back and say, well, our findings have changed now that we've seen this gravitational anomaly where there could be an even bigger rock down there that could be having or could have seeded the planet? Do you think they would change their stance if this was the case?
Yeah, people, or scientists especially, I mean, they give up things, skepticism, not very easily. So, I think that, possibly the next generation of scientists will accept it, even if the proof is like right in their face. The current ones, they're gonna fight it still.
Right.
But I am very much convinced that, you referred to the Viking experiments, that, life was detected. And I think that, that was really, it was a cover up. It was unexpected that they actually, got almost immediate proof that there was some kind of, microbial activity going on, which could be the same thing has happened with the samples that the Russians brought up from Lake Vostok, that, when they took them back and studied them, they may have found, the very same patterns as was, seen on Mars. Or, they have recognized that, from, some other, maybe other clandestine missions, out, around Jupiter or Saturn and things like that, they are looking at the very same DNA that, possibly has been, discovered elsewhere, but, we haven't been privy to it. And so I think that you're absolutely correct that there is this is probably a very good reason for all of the very interesting and strange flurry of activity, that's been going on, the news stories, about Antarctica. I mean, you've been hearing crazy things like, the pyramids and, you brought up the strange magnetic anomaly. Some of these just may be distractions until the real story breaks.
Yeah, and I would say that this would probably be the reason why science has said that in 2017 they feel confident that they'll be able to explore Enceladus and they'll be able to explore Europa, and underneath their ice crust they may find what they found in Antarctica. That's why I think that they most certainly are confident, is because the secret has been passed around about Antarctica. The announcement of the meteors found there, the announcement of the possible structures they have found there, the pyramids and also the oval structure now they've seen. So inadvertently discovering life on Antarctica or below the ice in Antarctica would actually give more credence to the idea that there is life in space on hostile places like Enceladus and Europa underneath the crusty ice where the geothermal waters are. And that's why they're confident, because of what is going on in Antarctica. They have discovered this, and now they're going to tell people, we're going to Jupiter, we're going to Saturn. We'll be back.
On FM News 101.
Do you feel that all the science in the world will never give us the answers we really want? Where we came from? Whether or not we're truly alone?
So, Doc, you looking forward to your first trip to Dry Valleys? It's a pretty cool spot this time of year.
Actually, Dr. McLaren needs to get to Mount Melbourne to search for his meteorite.
Nobody said anything to me about Melbourne.
Yeah, meteorite hunting is a pretty small world, and I didn't want anybody to know where I was really going. Because I'm looking for something special in Melbourne, and the NSF let us keep it off the paper. Is there a problem?
An old friend of mine and colleague from Oslo runs a geological research station in Antarctica. 48 hours ago, his team found something. There's a structure.
A structure? In Antarctica?
Yes, and a specimen.
We got something here. Hey, wait, Doc. Doc, wait a minute. Doc, don't move. You're outside the safety zone. It's a big one, Jerry. It's about 11 centimeters across before we attack. It looks like a basalt, but it's like nothing I've ever seen. Jerry! Doc! Doc, don't move! That area's unchecked. I told you to stay inside the flags.
Oh, my God.
This is it! Oh, man, I knew I could find it.
I believe there's a place where every one of those questions could be answered. I believe I know where that place is.
What'd they find?
That's all I can tell you. And I need a paleontologist.
6 hours, it'll be 100 below in here. Well, that's suicide. Not for that thing. It wants to freeze now. It's got no way out of here. It just wants to go to sleep in the cold until the rescue team finds it.
I need you to get me there. If you don't respond, sir, I completely understand, but I'll be sending this transmission again tomorrow. Thank you.
I'm Clyde Lewis, and you're listening to Ground Zero. The number is to call tonight, 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. What if proof of life out in space? What if we have to prove it by proving that there's life underneath the hostile conditions of Antarctica? It seems that this is where we're headed. It seems that this is what is going on. That is why they're asking dignitaries to come. That's why they're asking astronauts to come and view what is going on down there. Biological research into pre-terrestrial life forms that are found in the waters below the ice at Lake Vostok. That perhaps they've drilled far enough to the geothermal areas there in Antarctica to retrieve life. They're trying to prove that this life may have come from elsewhere, like maybe Mars. And if that's the case, then they have reason to believe that other creatures can live in hostile environments, whether they be enriched with methane or enriched with oxygen. That's the question. Tonight we have Tim Swartz with us to talk about this, because I think this is a breakthrough. I know that it's not, getting a lot of attention because there's so many things going on with politics. We just had a shooting today, and I know a lot of people probably want to hear more about that so they can, be afraid. But I think that this story is the one that's going to get buried, and we're going to be distracted from the idea that science is moving closer to determining how we came to be, how our civilization came to be, and that perhaps a lot of what we are and what our ancestors were pre-terrestrial. Tim, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Just contemplating the significance of that, Clyde, because if you are correct and they have found living specimens of what really would account to, would be extraterrestrial life on planet Earth, buried beneath the ice, and they can prove it, so one way or the other. And if it's been buried in this ice for, I think yesterday was like 14 million years.
Right.
This really is, the confirmation that we came from elsewhere. That life on planet Earth is the result of, like you said, panspermia. That life is prevalent out in the universe, and one way or the other, either through asteroids or comets or cosmic winds, the seeds of life are continuously being spread throughout the cosmos, and we are the result of that. Now, if you go and consider the implications of that and how a lot of people will deal with that implication. I know that there has been surveys taken, about how certain groups of people would react if they found out that, we weren't alone in the universe, that there was extraterrestrial life. Everyone says, oh, well, it'll be the, like the religious types that will handle it poorly. But actually, these surveys showed that it would be the scientists.
Yeah, I would agree.
that would handle it the worst.
Well, and as I said in the first hour, I said, this type of discovery would not change, in my opinion, anything the Bible says. In fact, no. It would give us more to go on, because here's the deal, so we're to assume that, Antarctica used to be this lush green continent with ancient civilizations that were wiped out in what science calls impact winter. Mm-hmm. And what impact winter is, it's basically a period of prolonged cold weather due to the impact of large asteroids or comets on the Earth's surface. If an asteroid strikes land or a shallow body of water, all of the dust, ash, and whatever would fill the skies, and we would have an ice age, or we'd have the ice form, and anything underneath it would have to, take cover there. But see, this is the thing, is that you see the global temperature decrease rapidly, drastically, and if an asteroid or comet with the diameter about 3.1 miles or more were to hit this large deep water or whatever and explode in the atmosphere, we'd have the impact winter that would last for as long as it did, but some things would survive under the ice if there was enough heat to keep them alive. So the evidence seems to suggest that all life on Earth has developed from a single organism back in the mists of time, and perhaps even from one single common ancestral cell. So one species, like the dinosaurs, were sacrificed so that another species, like humans and other animals, could survive. So how many times has this happened? That's the question, because this would then show us that this is how God operates. I remember the Pope said once, he said, God's not a magician. What he does is he does things in a natural way. So if creation is done in a natural way, it's not just he put man here, he put woman here and said, okay, go play in the garden. What happened was, and if Antarctica is the place to find this, a rock hit the planet, destroyed a species, destroyed everything, and then after everything was clean slate, order came from the chaos, beasts and fish started evolving again, and then humankind showed up again. And in order for it to go again, we will see another rock hit the planet. And when that rock hits the planet, it will devastate all the species that live and whatever lives afterwards, perhaps machines or perhaps another species will come from the other seeding of Earth. So Earth is this continuous incubator of new civilizations. And that's why we have extinction level events over and over again, because this is what Antarctica will prove, that the circle of life is basically destruction, and from that destruction comes creation.
Well, and it may not actually have to happen every time by meteor strikes and apocalyptic types of events. It may actually happen at times on a more slow event. I know some of the earlier proponents of panspermia speculated that the Earth is constantly being bathed in extraterrestrial life in the form of viruses.
Right.
And that, some of these new diseases that just seem to crop out of nowhere, well, they did crop out of nowhere, except that the nowhere was outer space. And it could be that at times these viruses fall down onto the planet and create a massive pandemic, like you said, wiping out practically all of the life, but then reestablishing themselves and starting a new strain of life.
That's right.
Until a new event happens.
Well, something that's really frightening here is, I don't know if you know this or not, but there is a thread of ice right now. It's about 12 miles long, and that's all that is anchoring a massive iceberg that's the size of Delaware, and it's in western Antarctica right now. And scientists are saying that they believe that this huge asteroid is going to break away from Antarctica. And if the iceberg breaks away, they call it calving. It's called the Larsen C ice shelf in Antarctica. It will lose more than 10% of its area, which amounts to about 2,000 square miles of ice. And they're saying that it's going to break away. Now, what I worry about, and they're saying that in most models, it's not going to cause any problems with the sea depth or the ocean depth. It's not going to raise the depth by that much, even if it did, it'd be 4 inches, maybe less. I don't know. But they're not saying that the immense crack in the separation will cause any problems with the oceans, because it just depends on how it disintegrates. If it disintegrates quickly, then we will have problems. If it disintegrates slowly, we won't have a problem at all. But here's the problem that I see. If this large 2,000 square mile piece of ice is going to separate from Antarctica and go drifting in the Pacific somewhere, wouldn't that disrupt some of that life that may be in the ice? And if it does, it could be viruses and all kinds of other problems. We can see these strange new strains coming up from the south, maybe South America, maybe, those places.
Yeah, well, they've been, if these strains have been frozen, in the ice for all these millions of years, and then they're thawed out. I mean, we do know for a fact that ancient microbes have been discovered and brought back to life again. I mean, there's been, more simple examples, seeds that were found in like Egyptian tombs were able to be, resuscitated and replanted, and they would grow. They've discovered frozen microbes in the permafrost of Siberia that they've brought back to life. I think one of them, was like the largest. I can't remember what it was like an amoeba or something along those lines. The largest that was ever discovered. So yes, I mean, there's a very good possibility that this giant sheet of ice could drift into warmer waters, and who knows what could be resurrected from them. I don't think it's a coincidence also, Clyde, that, ever since the Russians have been poking around in Lake Vostok, that there's been some unusual deaths and sicknesses from people that have been stationed in Antarctica.
Yeah, and that's true. Yeah, I agree with you. There have been a lot of sickness, and they wouldn't describe what Buzz Aldrin was exposed to when he was taken from Antarctica recently. And that's the thing that I wondered, because they said, well, it was because he was having atmospheric sickness or something, that he couldn't handle the air there or something. I don't know what was going on. I don't buy it. I think that once again, in these biological stations that are there in Antarctica, they have discovered what they've been keeping a secret, and that is they've discovered some form of life there that would indicate pre-terrestrial life forms that are there under the water, that they have certain traits that are unique to Earth, more unique than can be even fathomed, and that would make them, in a way, alien life forms. That this is the impetus, if not the reason why scientists are now confident that when they go to these moons of Saturn and Jupiter, that they will find life under the ice. And I know that a lot of people, they'll scoff and shake their head and say, no, there won't be disclosure in 2017. But I think this is the closest we've ever come in a scientific way, rather than speculating about whether or not little gray men are going to be revealed or whether or not flying saucers are going to be revealed. We do have this remarkable event in Antarctica. We have the circumstantial evidence that some dignitaries have there just seen this new life form, and that the gravitational anomalies, the magnetic anomalies, and all these areas where these rocks and these so-called spaceships are, that this is going to be the revelation that will indicate that we need to start thinking about exploring space again and saying, look, if these life forms came from space and they've been living under the ice in Antarctica for this long, then we have life forms in space that are living under ice on moons of Saturn and Jupiter and several other places. And this could mean a breakthrough in extraterrestrial life and disclosure.
There has to be some kind of smoking gun, so to speak, I think, that has led them to confirm that, this, whatever has been discovered, is of extraterrestrial in origin, because, they're discovering all kinds of, new life in really hostile environments here on planet Earth all the time.
Right.
But they readily accept that, this is life that comes here from planet Earth. So what is different about whatever it is that they have discovered that confirms to everyone that this is a life form not of planet Earth, but has established itself to such an extent that it basically, created, and I'll say modern within the last 14 million years,
right.
Modern wave of life.
Well, that would also indicate that quite possibly we're aliens, or we're pre-terrestrial too, that we existed in a preconditioned state before we came to planet Earth, and that too is something that a lot of people have believed many times, that humankind existed elsewhere and found itself here. That's the whole, premise of Battlestar Galactica. Science fiction made fact. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. What do you think about this discovery in Antarctica? This huge rock, perhaps alien base, this dome area that's been discovered. These are some new discoveries since we just talked about it. And I'm thinking that this is why they have confidence about life out in space. We'll be back with more. Keep it here. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. We'll be back.
FM News 101 KXL.
Tim Swartz with us tonight on Ground Zero, 888-673-3700. So, I was discussing with you prior to coming on the air that, we did a show the other night, and I was seeing that we have from NASA and other space agencies confidence, and this is the first time I've ever heard this or read this, confidence that they will find life on other planets. It no longer is a speculation. They're saying if they are given the tools necessary, they're going to be sending signals to Proxima B. These, fast burst broadcasts are also being investigated as well. But they especially said they're confident they'll find life on Europa. They'll find life on Enceladus. Why do you think they have the confidence?
Well, there could be. Now, several of these moons have geysers that actually lift water and other gases from the surface of these moons out into space. There could be a possibility that some of the probes that we have sent around Jupiter and Saturn may have been able to intercept some of this material that's been ejected out in space from these. And some way, maybe they have been able to get readings from these satellites. I've always thought it rather unusual, especially with the Mars probes, but that with the exception of the Viking probes in the 1976 or whatever, none of these satellites or Mars probes have ever had any equipment to look for life.
Yeah, I find that interesting too, because we go back to this 1976 mission, Gilbert Levin and all, and it just seems to me that they wanted to put the shutdown on this whole idea of microbial life, but now they're welcoming it again. I want to know why. I need to figure that one out. Once I do, I think we'll get it all figured out. But in the meantime, Antarctica, I think, is the focus before the focus on these moons and the focus on Mars. And I think maybe we're on the right track. This is kind of an accidental intercept, as you say. We've accidentally intercepted life that may indicate pre-terrestrial life, panspermia, and how the Earth goes through cycles of extinction and genesis. 888-673-3700. We'll be back. Tonight we have with us Tim Swartz. He's here to talk about the announcements coming out of Antarctica. We actually touched on the topic of Antarctica back at the beginning of December, as a lot of speculation was going around the internet over whether or not something big was going on down there, because we had dignitaries going there. We had the Russian Patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church there. John Kerry was there. We had Barack Obama going to Patagonia in Argentina because there was a new Chinese space base that was going there. A lot of interesting things were happening in like a 3-week period, and I was curious as to why. And I told all of you that if I found something interesting, I would report it. And a month later, I have found something interesting to report, and that is, I believe, from what I'm gathering from all the announcements that NASA has made concerning a huge rock under the ice, other announcements of pyramids under the ice, perhaps, and other things, I have come to the conclusion that the secret about what is in the lake underneath miles of ice is bringing us pre-terrestrial life, and that they will make the announcement that they have found pre-terrestrial life, that they have known about this pre-terrestrial life ever since the Russians were digging there. And another thing too is, Tim, I got to think about this too. How convenient would it be for the announcement to come that the Russians had discovered this life form, and they discovered it back in the days of drilling, when they were drilling it at Station Vostok, and they'd say, well, it's Russian, therefore it's fake. Can you imagine that irony if that happened?
Well, that wouldn't surprise me at all, Clyde. Previous Russian discoveries in the various sciences have been lambasted, here in the West as being fake or spurious or things like that. So yeah. I could see that happening for a while, because if this is the news that's going to break, it's going to be met with all kinds of skepticism and debunking for quite a while. Until the truth finally comes out. And the easiest thing to do is to say, well, it's Russian, it's propaganda, it's disinformation, whatever, fake news.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there'll be all sorts of, Western scientists, going on, CNN and Fox and, with all kinds of reasons why, this can't be true. There's just no, there's no way. There's no proof that there's, life on other planets or elsewhere, so yes, I mean, when this story breaks, you're going to see a couple of months of just rabid disbelief. Until it finally happens.
Well, and that's why I'm glad we're kind of breaking this story here on my show, because it gives people a way to research it themselves and then they'll realize that after the story breaks in the mainstream, if it ever does break in the mainstream, there will be enough people who say, well, we knew about this when Clyde first talked about it, when Tim first talked about it, and that we won't be so surprised when they decide to take it apart piece by piece. But once again, we have to ask the question, why have they kept the secret of what these life forms are under the water for so long? And what now do they know that they want to use it as leverage to get enough money to go to Saturn or go to Jupiter to investigate the moons of Enceladus and Europa? And why is it in a statement, I don't know, the statement was just so weird when they said, we have confidence that we will find life on these two moons. I've never heard them say anything like that before. Before it was always like, hypothetical, or it was, speculative, but they said, we have confidence that we will find life out there.
It's very curious, and it's like I said earlier, there has to be some kind of information that the rest of us are not privy to that has led to that belief structure, that that has convinced those in the know that this life exists. Who knows what it is, and it may never come out. I mean, it's like you said earlier, if the story does come out, it could very easily be buried by, a terrorist attack or something, something like that, or something Trump says, over, Twitter. So, I mean, it's very easy for a story like this to end up, on the, fifth page underneath the horoscope.
It's true. It's so true. I mean, I remember last night, we were on the air. We were talking with, Mickey from Project Censored. And he said to us, because we were talking about the briefing that the CIA was going to drop on Obama's desk. And we said, before that briefing comes out, I said to Mickey, what do you think is going to happen? He says, there'll be some false flag event or some distraction that'll keep us from finding out just what exactly is going on with this Russian briefing that CIA is supposed to be presenting. Sure enough, that CIA briefing was put on Obama's desk today, and we had a shooting in Fort Lauderdale. So that distracted us from even going in and reading the document. I posted it on my Facebook page so people could read it, and I have a feeling that nobody's going to read it, that everybody's going to believe the lie. And same thing with this. We have the Russians who, kind of talked about the life that they may have discovered in Lake Vostok underneath all the ice, poo-pooed it like we always do, anything that would be new life forms or maybe even life that existed about the time of the dinosaurs under the water. And of course they dismiss it, but now we see the circumstantial evidence of dignitaries flying down there, and we don't know why they're flying down. An astronaut is there to witness this. He even tweets a picture of what looks like a pyramid formation from the area there. And so he's seen all this stuff, and then he all of a sudden gets sick. He all of a sudden falls ill, and they take him out. Maybe he was exposed to this life form. It kind of made him sick, because these life forms are unique to Earth, and they may not be able to survive outside of Antarctica or even outside the 10 to 20 times oxygen levels that they have down there.
Well, that is until they rapidly evolve.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a bad.
But how rapid is that? How rapid would be rapid? I mean, they've been down there, like you say, maybe for millions of years, maybe thousands of years, and now we're finally discovering them. And then this ice thread, this 2,000 square mile ice thread that's breaking away from Antarctica, what is that going to mean for the life forms? They could be released as bacteria or some other kind of disease or virus, and then we'd all be in trouble. And that's the thing, is that every time, and I've said this before on many occasions, every time we have contact with aliens or any alien life form or any pre-terrestrial, extraterrestrial life form, it could mean our extinction, because this would indicate that something is coming to take over where we are. And that would mean, like they say, an asteroid hit there, or an asteroid took over the dinosaurs. What came on that asteroid? But the building blocks for life, alien life, extraterrestrial life, that basically wiped out dinosaurs, wiped out fish, and then the next one that hits will wipe out us. Whether it be a disease or a rock or something, the apocalypse will come, and when it does, there'll be another life form waiting to get on board and live in hostile conditions. And these creatures are living in hostile conditions.
Well, but right now, the ones say that that could be alive in Lake Vostok. I mean, that's a closed environment. They've been under there for 14 million years, and so I mean, it's very easy for a life form to stay static, so to speak, all that time. Once they are released, though, if that happens, or it may have already have happened, there could be several different scenarios take place. Our environment may be just so hostile to them. Like you said, I mean, the amount of oxygen in our atmosphere is a lot lower than it was when these things were originally covered with ice. I mean, they may not be able to survive. They could, like how a flu virus will evolve. It starts out on, in pig farms in China and then gets transferred to ducks, and then it makes that leap, rapidly evolving to become infectious to humans. You could see a scenario like that coming from some kind of unknown life form that's being released. We may have already seen it to a certain extent, like we talked about earlier. With some of these personnel that is suddenly getting sick and being airlifted out, and then strange communications, from one doctor to another, telling the doctor who's coming in to fill his pockets with salt. There's been a lot of speculation on just exactly what that meant. Mm-hmm. So I mean, we've got some very unknown factors going on here.
Well, and that's the thing, is that what kind of pathogens would come with the discovery of these creatures, and that's why I worry that what was Buzz Aldrin exposed to? What were some of the other scientists that were actually flown out of there exposed to? I didn't hear of a death, but we could hear someone who's remarkably ill, who was exposed to these types of creatures. And that's the thing, is it's kind of like the War of the Worlds scenario, where it was our bacteria that killed the aliens. Well, what about our bacteria once again killing the aliens, or them killing us? I mean, I think even Stephen Hawking said that if we were to find alien life, it'd be a lot like what had happened to the Indians and the indigenous humans of the areas where Columbus came and DeSoto came and all these people came. They all died because they were exposed to the diseases that people like Columbus brought from Spain.
Well, see, and you've made a very good point there, Clyde. If this is an actual extraterrestrial life form that's been, buried under this ice for all these years, and it has the ability, though, to sicken us, that means that we are related to it. A totally alien disease would not be it wouldn't find us palatable, so to speak. Right. It couldn't infect us. If it can infect us, that means that we are related to it some way, somehow.
Well, the relationship would be the idea that not only are these creatures pre-terrestrial, but we're pre-terrestrial. Exactly. And that would indicate, you've heard that statement, we are the aliens on our own planet. We very well could be, and there are more aliens waiting in the wings to take over, and that is what the invasion will be. It'll be the smallest life forms growing into the bigger life forms. If there are anthropomorphic aliens out there, or even aliens that look like octopus, as we talked about the other night, these are the creatures that are waiting in the wings. They're not the ones we're going to hear about first. We're going to hear about these parasites and ancient bacteria, and maybe even some of this aquatic life that lives in Antarctica first, that gives the impetus for science to say, we're going to launch our ships into space, into Jupiter, into Saturn, Jovian system, and we will explore the moons, Enceladus, and we'll explore the moons of Europa. This is why I believe they're confident. They've had the backing, they've had the elites there to witness what they have found, and now they're trying to get the funding to blast off, and our future will be the confidence of science that they have found alien life forms. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Maybe we will find the answer to whether or not we're alone in our lifetime. What do you think? We'll be back with more Ground Zero. Don't go away. Tim Swartz is with us tonight on Ground Zero. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Go now to Dennis calling in from Texas. Hi, Dennis. You're on Ground Zero with Tim Swartz and myself. Go ahead.
Hey, Tim. How you guys doing tonight? I was listening to y'all talking a few minutes ago, and you're saying that an alien bacteria or virus could not infect us unless we were related to it in some way. But if you go back to the Big Bang, and we were all made of stardust, basically. So why wouldn't an alien bacteria virus creature be made of the same thing that we are?
Well,
so,
I think that's what
we're all related throughout the entire universe.
I think that's what we were inferring, is that, and I said it too, I said if we all come together as pre-terrestrial, we're aliens on this planet along with what is down there in Antarctica, that would be the secret, that we share the same heritage as these creatures below the ice. And if not, they're older than we are, but they certainly have the ability to adapt to harsher conditions. So maybe we have the opportunity to do it too, right, Tim?
Yes, that's it exactly. We are probably related to all life throughout the universe. And this could be a perfect example to prove that case.
This is true. And if there is alien bacteria, viruses up there,
or down there,
and down there, I believe that there is. I mean, we've been hit by asteroids for 4 billion years now?
Yeah.
So there has to be something from another planet or another system on this Earth.
So Dennis,
and
you told my screener that you went to Antarctica. You've been to Antarctica, correct?
Yes, I have.
And you were there with the military?
6 months up there.
You were there with the military.
Yes.
So you know that it is a biological test facility down there. Just you can't do anything really military down there. Even though the military is there, but there are scientists and examiners, and they do a lot of excavating down there. What do you know that you can tell us has been going on down there?
The Arctic is where things are going to happen first.
Okay.
As far as natures and climate change and all this other kind of stuff, that's where it's going to happen first. So they're naturally going to spend their time up there and take the readings from up there and do their digging up there, because that's where all the information is going to happen.
So, Dennis, would you agree and with Tim and I that the discovery of what may be down there at Vostok could be a key to life out in space somewhere?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. It would have to be.
Seems like that's where we're heading, Dennis. And I really appreciate you calling the program and giving us your insight, especially since you've been to Antarctica, because it really boggles the mind. Because I mean, most people in their lifetime would never be able to go that far south. I mean, the farthest south I ever went was Buenos Aires. But I'm just saying that going that far south and being able to go down to this mysterious part of the world. And to know that some of the mysteries are being yielded up because, we're getting visits there from people in important roles. And then finally they're telling us, well, we found these extraterrestrial rocks down there. And then we found these dome structures down there. There could be a civilization buried under the ice down there, flash frozen, or we could be seeing the life from Vostok being revealed that it may have some of the same traits of what may be out there in space. I think it's a fascinating time to be alive.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. I mean, I've been interested in the aliens and all this kind of stuff, for decades. And I mean, you just look at not necessarily just the Arctic, but I mean, you look around the world, like Pumapunku and the pyramids and the Sphinx, and just the knowledge that was used to build these things before. I mean, some of these things we couldn't even create today.
I agree. I mean, it'd be hard to create that, especially with the precision that they were created back then. Dennis, thank you for your call. Tim Swartz with us tonight on Ground Zero. A lot of activity going on in Antarctica. Again, announcements of certain rocks, bacteria, life forms, and even underground cities there. This is big news, and we're giving you an idea of why the scientists are so confident about going to the Jovian system to find life in space. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back.
Only one untouched reservoir of raw materials left in the world, and that's in the region known as Antarctica, an area larger than the combined area of the United States and Europe. The American government is sending a naval expedition to that region.
Antarctica, with an area of some 14 million square kilometers, this vast, bleak continent is twice the size of Australia. For countless eons, it has been empty, and only in this century has man managed to gain a foothold on the huge ice sheet, which covers all but 1% of the land mass.
Russian scientists have found a new type of life in the water in Antarctica's subglacial Lake Vostok. Researchers found the bacteria while studying samples of ice retrieved from a depth of almost 4 kilometers late last year.
If you have this microcosm environment, it could lead to some discoveries as to how we evolved, or it could lead to some medical discoveries as well.
I'm willing to say to you that there will be a number of expeditions that will follow, I think, year after year, to the bottom of the world, because the government has really become interested.
Scientists believe a massive object which could change our understanding of history is hidden beneath the Arctic ice.
In 2016, a team of American and European researchers claimed to have found proof of an ancient Antarctic civilization.
Break through this final barrier, because what if there's something down there that's harmful to us? We open Pandora's box.
Saturn's moon Enceladus and Jupiter's moon Europa are both potential candidates for alien life. The findings in Antarctica are more evidence that life could thrive under the moon's ice crusts.
Cold is the void.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero. Once again, it's exciting to hear all this information, especially when there are plenty of people out there that are doubting that 2017 will be the year that we find out just where we stand with regard to being alone in the universe. More and more things are indicating, science is indicating, that the way to find out about life out there is to rediscover life that is here. But we have to go into a hostile environment to find that life. And when the life is found, we determine that it's pre-terrestrial, that maybe it was brought here by a huge asteroid or meteorite, and that while some parts of the world were destroyed, other parts of the world thrived, and that ice sheet has been what has been keeping these alien life forms alive. Tim Swartz with us tonight on Ground Zero. I mean, just listening to that, what I just played, it just made me go, wow. I mean, and this is, and yet we're focusing on whether or not Russia has interfered with our elections. And yet this stuff is breaking in all of the science. It's breaking all over the world in European space studies and other space studies. Meanwhile, we're just still piddling around with problems in our own country. I just think that this gives us a little bit of hope that there may be life out in space.
It really does. And, I recommend that everyone check out other news sources outside of the United States. Don't rely entirely on news, coming from here. Check out European news services, and others, because you will find stories and information like what we're talking about tonight that are not being sufficiently covered. Here in the States.
So unfortunate. So unfortunate.
It really is, yeah.
Because there's so many things happening right now outside of our own little realm of heliocentrism, I guess. And it just seems to me that, people are missing out on some of the most remarkable stories. They're being distracted with shootings and distracted with war hawks, wanting war. And it was the same thing that happened in the times of the moon landings. We were more interested in Vietnam and I Love Lucy. And then we certainly had to do something big, and we need to do something big now because we are on the brink of a mass discovery of life out in space, and that's going to happen this year if people are paying attention and if they really want it. All of this disclosure and everything about, free energy and all this other stuff, put that aside for a moment and realize that we have found reasons to go to the Jovian system to find life, and it is right there in Antarctica. But once again, it's a Russian discovery, and oh my God, the Russians are horrible. It's just so sad that this is where we are right now. The 1956 Red Scare is back. Let's go to Bill in Connecticut. Bill, you're on with Tim Swartz. Go ahead.
Yes, hi, Clyde, and hi, Tim Swartz. Yes, hi. Clyde, Clyde, you know me. I'm an amateur astronomer, and I've been an amateur scientist for the last 52 years since I was age 15 in 1965. I just turned age 67 2 days, January 4th.
Congratulations.
Thank you. My point is, even though I don't have a PhD in astronomy or cosmology or astrophysics, I know a lot about it. Now, I want to talk briefly about Mars, as you said, as well as Jupiter's moon Europa, as well as Saturn's moon Enceladus. It's pronounced Enceladus.
Enceladus, tomato, whatever. Go ahead.
All right, and I want to relate it to Lake Vostok.
Okay,
now,
go ahead.
First of all, regarding Lake Vostok in Antarctica, if the life there were, as you called it, pre-terrestrial, which it's not, my point is it would have to be over 3.5 billion years old, because life started on Earth about 800 million years after the Earth formed, which was 4.6 billion years ago.
But if it hits to ride, Bill, if it hits to ride on the rock, it would be pre-terrestrial. Because it wasn't formed here. I mean,
we don't know.
I don't know, Bill. First of all, do you believe in panspermia? Yes or no? I kind of lean towards the idea.
It's not a belief. I want to see data from it. It's possible.
But what data do you want? I mean, you're an atheist. You should think for 1 minute that if God doesn't do it, then rocks coming down would do it. We'd evolve from these single-celled organisms that would be brought from outer space.
Yeah, I'm saying. Yeah, I didn't say panspermia is impossible. I like to see data. It did happen. Yes, yes, I am an atheist. That's why I wanted to mention. Also, don't mention God. That this is the way God works in nature with asteroids. That's ridiculous.
I do it for the majority of my listeners. I'm sorry that you don't eat at the same lunch table, but go ahead, Bill.
Okay, my point simply is regarding Lake Vostok, first of all, if these organisms are 14 million years old, that's a lot more recent than 3.5 billion years ago. Now, going to Mars, in just 3 years, in 2020, there are two rovers, one American rover called Curiosity 2.0, based on the 2012 Curiosity rover, the recent rover, and Europe's ExoMars rover. Both will look for past as well as present microbial life underneath the soil of Mars. Both will have drills that could drill down 10 feet or more, especially Europe's ExoMars rover. So that would be the year 2020. We'll get an idea if there's maybe life. This is to be the first two spacecraft since Viking, as you pointed out, in 1976 to have life detection instruments on them. Now, regarding Europa and Enceladus, there are two missions. For Europa, there's a mission called Europa Clipper that will orbit Jupiter and fly by Europa 45 times with radar measurements to look at the ice through radar, as well as cameras, TV cameras, as well as that mission in particular will have a lander, because Republican Texas Congressman John Culbertson last year, 2016, put as a legal mandate that Europa Clipper must have a lander to land on the surface of Europa and either drill down the ice or use a small nuclear reactor with heat to burn through the ice down to maybe a mile or half a mile or 2 miles down under Europa with instruments and spectrometers and so forth, look for DNA and stuff. And then regarding Enceladus, there's a mission called ELF, Enceladus Life Finder, as Tim mentioned earlier, will fly as it orbits Saturn. It'll fly by Europa through the plumes, the geysers that come out of Enceladus, and look for chemistry of life in those plumes. So it's very similar to the Europa mission, Europa Clipper, the Enceladus Life Finder. So those are the three things: Mars, Europa, the moon of Jupiter, and Enceladus, the moon of Saturn. And the Europa mission will be launched in 2022, just 5 years, and the Enceladus one maybe 2025, 2026.
Okay, Lincoln to Vostok. You said you'd do that for me. Lincoln to Vostok. Are we looking for the same type of life that's in the ice in Vostok?
All right. What we're looking for is life that can exist in harsh areas. It doesn't mean necessarily it's pre-terrestrial, but if life can exist now for the last 14 million years underneath the ice in Lake Vostok, it does imply, not prove, but imply that life could, yes, exist under the ice in Europa and under the ice in Enceladus as well.
Or in conditions that are harsh. In conditions that are harsh, like in space.
Yeah,
I mean, you know.
Except that inside the moon Europa and inside the moon Enceladus, under the ice, It's warm there because of geothermal heating from the main planet, Europa being the planet being Jupiter, and Enceladus the planet being Saturn.
Actually, they're
so
moons.
it's nice and warm. It's nice and warm. So maybe macroscopic, big life, aquatic life of some kind. I won't say fish, but aquatic life. It wouldn't look like Earth life. It wouldn't be octopus or fish necessarily, but it'd be some kind of aquatic life that maybe would have some form of gills. That seems logical to use the water there for maybe breathing in some form.
Right. Well, I mean, and I thank you for all that information because, I would just say, though, and you got to hand it, to both Tim and I, the dots are pretty obvious to me. And I would say with what you're saying, they're pretty obvious to you, too.
Yes, and even though I'm a Democrat, liberal Democrat, I'm glad that John Culbertson won his seat again in the recent election in Texas, because it was John Culbertson, Republican congressman of Texas, that is for the lander on the Europa Clipper mission. He's an amateur astronomer himself.
Well, let's hope that we do go to space in the new administration, that they are people who still believe in it. Maybe these visits by these dignitaries to Antarctica are there to petition and ask for money so that we can do these expeditions to prove the similarities, if not the analog, space race, which I talked about.
And one more thing briefly about Donald Trump. Since Donald Trump said he's for infrastructure, I am hoping upon hope, even though I did not vote for him, that he will be for space infrastructure, and he may get us to Mars quicker. He may do for Mars in the 21st century what President John F. Kennedy did for the moon, I'm hoping.
I'm hoping too, Bill. Thank you so much for your call. Thank you for the information. 888-673-3700. Boy, Tim, I mean, he had it all down. He knows exactly what's going on. But see, to him, too, being hard to convince and very skeptical, he says that the dots are obvious, that Antarctica's announcements are just basically the stepping stone for announcements in deeper space for extraterrestrial life.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I appreciate him giving that information, especially about the the life detection instruments that are going to be on, especially like the Mars probe and the ones going out to Europa. Let's just hope that especially the Mars ones actually make it. Because history, especially with the European space probes to Mars, hasn't been so good.
Well, and the Russian probes that went to Phobos and Deimos, the scary thing that the last picture it took was something that looked like a flying disc coming in to destroy it. And you can see the shadow of what destroyed these probes right there on the surface of Mars. And it looked pretty extraterrestrial, sci-fi 1950s flying saucer type stuff, which I thought was really creepy.
Yeah, it was a giant flying disc as well. It was huge.
And that's another thing that we're probably going to touch on maybe Monday or Tuesday. I don't know if you followed this story about this UFO, they say UAP, that was confirmed by this Chilean Navy as being authentic, that they don't know what it is and that it let go. It actually dropped in the atmosphere a heated metal of some kind. And they have it all on tape. Infrared tape. Was a helicopter there that was observing it. And so once again, South America is the place where we're finding out that, things are being declassified, UFO sightings, and also what's going on now in Antarctica. And we knew that something was going to happen. Something was boiling up. And finally, success. We got the information we needed. Life under the ice, which would basically give us an indication that maybe life out in space at all as well, because of the fact that there are harsh conditions where life can sustain itself, which is amazing. Amazing science that's happening on right now. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back with more with Tim and your calls. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back.
With Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero on FM News 101.
Tim Swartz is with us on Ground Zero. Go down to Joseph in Ohio. Hi, Joseph. You're on Ground Zero. Go ahead.
Hi, how you doing today, Clyde, Mr. Lewis?
Go ahead. You're fine. Good to hear from you.
Hold on. Speakerphone while I was waiting. I was interested in the show you guys were talking about, and we've had some questions. I don't know. I've seen on YouTube before, and all those shows that they have about them having these holes in Antarctica, and then on top of the North Pole. you guys probably heard of it. Was wondering like what's your take about that? Because I heard you were saying about the underground cities that they found.
You talking about a hollow Earth? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, there's like I seen this. Was watching it like a week ago. There's like these holes or something. There's like magnetic activity, but it was like in the video they were showing. I can't remember the guy's name. Was back in the day one of the explorers that went down to the
Admiral
South
Byrd.
Pole.
Tim, could you comment about that, Admiral Byrd, and some of the discoveries he made and the magnetic fields and all these other things that are strange about Antarctica?
Yes, definitely. Well, it used to be a popular theory, especially in the 19th and up until the middle 20th century, that, the Earth was hollow, like the inside of an egg or something like that, and that there were openings at the North and South Pole that, you could gain access, into the hollow Earth. Well, Admiral Byrd explored both the Arctic and especially the Antarctic, and there were stories that came out that said that during some of Byrd's expeditions that he had actually run across areas that appeared to be ice-free, that had trees and possibly animals. So there was a lot of speculation that he had actually flown into the hollow Earth. I think a lot of that came about because of his 1947 expedition called Operation High Jump, where he had a huge military task force that went to Antarctica for some reason. They claimed it was scientific and they were looking for minerals or things like that. But they took enough firepower with them that they could have invaded a small country. They were there. They were supposed to be there for up to 6 months, but after 6 weeks they suddenly turned tail and left. And afterwards, Byrd was quoted as saying that he was fearful of enemy missiles or aircraft flying over the poles and attacking the United States. So it's we're left with that mystery, as well. And as your guest has said, there's also been some very unusual electromagnetic phenomenons associated, especially in Antarctica, possibly having to do with that massive buried object that has made the news again recently.
Yeah, it's like it reminds you of that movie back in the 60s or something, Journey to the Center of Europe. Like maybe there's like a underground city, and that's not just in Antarctica. The Arctic could be like all over the place. And as you saying too, the Nazi 211 projects about them being down there, like maybe they ran down there. Like now you guys talk about the microscopic life, maybe a last resort, trying to unleash that upon the world, or whatever creatures or entities or aliens or whatever was down there, came in contact. And then about Byrd, I was on the YouTube channel, can't remember who it was, but it was saying that he had kept it secret his whole life until he died, that he was told not to speak about what he's seen.
Well, always remember, Joseph, before the Nazis and before anyone that has gone down there to explore anything, it was always H.P. Lovecraft who spoke about Antarctica and the mysteries that exist there. And, of course, Cthulhu, the alien octopod creature that is asleep somewhere in the South Pacific, which that'll end on a chilling note tonight. Tim Swartz, thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you very much, Clyde. I had a great time tonight, and I hope your listening audience enjoyed it as well.
Oh, it was amazing. Thank you so much, Tim, for being on the program. And we'll call you back if anything more paranormal and strange rises up from the depths, so to speak. I really appreciate you being on the program.
All right. Good night.
Have a good night. Take care.